Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Meds and Magic. It's me, Samantha, and I have the wonderful pleasure of having a fast friend, Jen Hoverstad, here to talk about her journey, her breast cancer journey. And I want to just sort of imagine this. You are a young mom, you are, during the day, you are basically trying to just deal with mealtime adventures and play dates. And then at night, you're, sleep training woes. And then all of a sudden, you're sitting across from your doctor and they say the word cancer. That's
Yeah,
what you least expect, and that's what happened to her, and so I'm so grateful for her openness to share her journey with us because so often, young moms and
mhm,
young women, we don't hear their stories as much, and so
sure.
I just wanna say thank you, Jen. We are on the tail end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Woo-hoo, we got it in. And, it's more than a month. It's more than just pink, right? And this is, many women's stories, and this it's a lifetime journey as we'll get into it. Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
it is. Thank you. Quite the introduction. I appreciate that. Yes. Captured it so accurately.
Yes, I know, right? When we were chatting before, I was just totally enraptured by your story. And so if you could just take us back to sort of that time, what was going on in your life? Like where were you? Are you out here just pressing the flash, trying to make moves like so many of us high achieving women, are doing in our 30s. So where were you
Sure.
in your life when this happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, you set it up really well. The
Yeah.
end of 2017, I had just had my second kid earlier in 2017. It's funny because our Christmas card that year, that's kind of what stands out to me is our
Yeah.
Christmas card was I had Elin, my oldest, was like a 3-year-old dancing on our kitchen counters. My youngest was a baby, like, sitting in the corner. I was pouring coffee because I worked for a coffee company. My husband was doing something in the back. We had 2 dogs. I mean, like that, we literally kind of wanted to display the chaos in our Christmas card, not realizing that this would really be the case
Yeah.
later on that year, that the chaos would level up in the year to
Yeah.
come. So that's kind of how we ended 2017. I was the brand manager for a national coffee company, what I thought would be my dream job, for years and years and years to come. My husband was working in marketing and sales, and yeah, we had these two little kids, and so a few months into the year, I found, actually a discoloration on my left breast. It wasn't
Okay.
even, that was my first clue to do a self-exam. I was like, "Huh, that's weird, not seen that before." And, right away, immediately when I did a self-exam, I felt a tumor that was 6 centimeters in size, so kind of felt like a walnut, just, like, very hard, didn't belong, and,
Mhm.
a lot of people ask, like, "Well, did you think?" Because my daughter wasn't even 1 yet. Wasn't breastfeeding anymore. I had had mastitis multiple times with both of my
Okay.
girls, so it felt
Okay.
different than that. Um, and it was enough where, like, almost immediately I was alarmed. I was like,
Yeah.
"This doesn't seem right." But thankfully, since I was still considered postpartum, still within that year of having my youngest, I was able to get in right away the next day with my OB, and he was the one who sent me to the specialist the next day, a breast specialist the next day. She immediately got me a mammogram, immediately had a ultrasound right after the mammogram because if there's anything questionable on a mammogram, they send you to ultrasound. That's a
Yeah.
best practice.
Yeah.
And then I was able to get diagnosed the next day. So I had a biopsy too. So we were able to get so much confirmed within 3 days
Wow.
of me finding
3
my tumor.
days.
3 days.
I mean, that's like lightning fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like lightning fast when you think of like the healthcare system. And I'm so grateful
Yeah.
that you experience like this is what it can look like at
Right.
its best, you
And,
know?
I I credit my doctors too, because after hearing to your
Yeah,
point, I've heard a lot of women's stories, and not every story sounds like mine does.
yeah.
And I think that the professionals I just happen to already be working with,
Mhm.
it was specifically my OBGYN, he's in Raleigh, North Carolina. I credit him to getting that going very quickly, because I
Yeah.
don't think it could have happened otherwise.
Yeah. Were you the type of person who like did regular self exams? Was it on your radar? Like, do you have family history or experience with people with breast cancer or any cancer in your family?
Yeah, so, at the time, like, it was, the thing that came up every year on my exam, my grandmother, my mom's mom, had
Okay.
had breast cancer, what we think was probably, like, a hormonal breast cancer in when she turned 80. That's when she was diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
So, every year, I would bring that up, and everybody would be like, "Oh, she was 80," like,
Yeah.
not a concern. What we found, so 2 things that we found after I was diagnosed is that, 1, I do not have any genetic links, not any
Okay.
obvious genetic links. So I did a whole panel of genetic testing. But the other thing is that my grandmother, her grandmother also had breast cancer, because when we go back to her death records, we can see it looks like she died from maybe a complication of a mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it said like carcinogen of the breast or something like that on her death certificate. So it was like, okay, so we skip a generation between each, and while there's no identified genetic link yet, you kind of
Yeah.
have to ask. There has
Yeah.
to be something, because while we were all in the state of North Carolina, we weren't in the same area. So even like
Okay.
an environmental question,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know how much that would play into that. So I still
Yeah.
feel like there's probably something there. Science just hasn't figured it out yet.
Gotcha. And were you the person that regularly checked because of that history? Like,
I wouldn't say
not really?
regularly. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
I think more than anything, especially having just had kids, like I
Yes.
said, I had a lot of issues with mastitis. Breastfeeding was really hard for me, and with my second, I think I lasted about 6 weeks. So,
Okay.
I was probably just more attuned to
Yes.
changes, whether it was breast tissue or things like that, that, it happened to be that. And one of the things that we're hearing now, and Samantha, you probably know more about this than I do, but one of the things we're hearing now is that women within 10 years of having a child, we're seeing an increase of cancer,
Yeah.
specifically breast cancer, in that decade after having kids. And actually that was something that I even Googled, because I ended up finding a group of friends where all of us had had kids relatively close together. And I was like, there
Mhm.
has to be something here. So I'm not a
Yeah.
doctor. I don't know what that is, but I
Yeah.
am now seeing that that's being studied as well.
Yes. I love that, um, researchers are now taking more of a like a broader approach
Yeah.
and tuning into these like correlations. Okay, let's study this group more closely. Let's study this more closely because I
Yeah.
think that the more sort of pictures you have of what can be going on, the more
Mhm.
strategic we can be with our prevention because right now, as you know, it's just sort of like the screening is mammogram and then, ultrasound. But the age is because how old were you when you were diagnosed?
34.
So that was
Yeah.
before you were regularly getting screened.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was, um that particular piece wasn't in my radar. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love that we're looking at how can we start screening younger women? And I know that for
Yeah.
you, we're going to get into this a little bit because once you were diagnosed, I want to know what sort of was your approach. We talked about this a little bit with
Mm.
your personality.
Yeah.
Because everybody kind of had when they're faced with this life altering like boom, cancer, the big C, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
everybody's response is different, you know? I think of the fight, flight, freeze, you know, type of
Yeah.
responses, and I kinda feel like you were just like, "Okay, we gonna fight." We gon we gon
Yeah. That was one thing, and I think this is such a great, like, thought for life where I remember when I was diagnosed, I mean, there was just no question. It was like, throw it all at me. I will do the whole protocol that you recommend. Because at first, when I was diagnosed, I had some people, I was fortunate to live in Raleigh, North Carolina, in an area where there's a lot of money that goes into breast cancer
Yes.
research and treatments and, kind of what's next in the cancer world for women between Duke University and
Oh,
UNC.
yeah, the research triangle.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there were even some doctors that had their own private practices not affiliated with hospitals that were really, well known for treating women with breast cancer in particular, and so at first I was like, "Oh man, I need to go to Duke, I need to go to Carolina, I need to figure all this stuff out."
yeah.
What I found was for my particular type of breast cancer, which was HER2 positive breast cancer, hormone negative breast cancer. We can get into that a little bit, but for the purposes of this part of the conversation, HER2 breast cancer had what we call a standard protocol. And so
Mhm.
I met with my doctors at UNC Health first, and they encouraged me. They're like, you are welcome to go anywhere you'd like and get a second opinion. Like, go on, like, no
Yeah,
problem. Our feelings aren't hurt. You do whatever makes you
yeah.
feel comfortable. But this is the standard treatment of care. And so as I talked to some other people, it was like, okay, I'm going to get the same treatment regardless of where I
Mhm.
go. Where do I feel most comfortable? And this particular hospital with UNC Health has been a hospital I've been at multiple times throughout my life. I was even born there, so I did feel most comfortable
Yeah,
there. And I think it's when I hear women who maybe have to question, like, the trust of, do
yeah,
they trust what the doctor's telling them? Do they need to go get a second opinion or a third or a fourth opinion? Do they
yeah,
have a more complicated cancer? And maybe they need to
yeah.
go out to MD Anderson and find out, like, what's a trial or what's up and coming?
Mhm.
I don't judge that at all. I just
Yeah,
feel very grateful that my particular diagnosis, I didn't have a lot of choices. And
yeah,
so I just had to choose, where do I feel most comfortable? And I trust my healthcare professionals. And with that, I was able to say, I'm all in. Like, just throw the
yeah.
book at me and we'll do all the things. And even now, every year when I see my oncologist, I'm like, all right, what's new in research for my type of cancer? Is there anything else I need to be doing? And
Yeah,
thankfully, the answer is no. There's nothing new that's come out with my particular type of breast cancer. But yeah, it can be for different women and different diagnoses. There can be some maybe more difficult conversations
yeah,
and harder things to consider than what I had to do.
yeah, and I appreciate you just mentioning that, for you highlighting the fact that, breast cancer is not like a monolith. There are various
It is
different
not.
things to consider. And I
Mhm.
feel like for the general public, they're not aware of that.
Right?
And so just knowing that, once you get a diagnosis and then you get into the specifics of the type of cancer that you have, and then there are types of options for different types of cancers that will inform your decision.
Yeah.
And I love that you also mentioned that you had a baseline trust and a baseline
Yeah.
familiarity with your healthcare team, right? And I feel like, yeah, that may be more elusive for people,
Mhm.
I think about especially in the Black and brown population, I see
Mhm.
that a lot of
Yeah.
mistrust just historically. Um, but that's not something that you cannot engage with,
Sure.
like what you were saying, get your second opinion, your third opinion, fourth
Mhm.
opinion, reach out to the people that you have trusted,
Mhm.
those other women, right? Who might have, oh yeah, I know somebody over here, and I know, word of mouth, whatever you need to do in order to
Yeah.
connect with like a safe, trusting healthcare team. I love that
And
you said that.
I think too, for especially for women that maybe feel uncomfortable or don't have connections or are having to shop around, so to speak, to find the right provider. Take someone you trust with you.
Yeah.
Have a second set of ears in the room. My husband was that person for me, but I have been that person for other people when they're just like, they're going into an appointment expecting to hear a lot of hard information. Take someone you trust because you
Yes.
at least have the power to do that. And then someone else is thinking a little bit more clearly for you. Because I remember I took my husband Thomas to every appointment, even the one with that first one with my OBGYN, which I never took my husband outside of like baby visits. I
Yeah.
just felt like I needed someone else there, and it was a good hunch. But the next day when I went for my mammogram, which turned into an ultrasound, I didn't take him because I was like, "Oh, this is just a test, like, you don't need to be there."
Mhm.
But for the ultrasound, when I laid down on the table, I remember the radiologist saying, "I'm so glad you came in today." And then that was all I heard. And when I was repeating it back to my
Mm.
husband, he goes, "Well, why did she say that?" I was like, I don't remember what else she said because I was so caught off guard. Like when I heard kind of the worry in her voice, my brain shut
Yeah.
down. So
Yes.
yes, whether it is a foundational mistrust based on previous life
Mhm.
experiences or family experiences, or maybe it's just you're in a new place and you don't
Yes.
know the doctors and you have to really figure something out. Take someone you trust who can really be your eyes and ears and ask hard questions. I think that's the right person to have in the room. Someone who will speak up
Yes.
for you and ask questions when maybe your brain can't handle what you're going through in the moment.
I love that because I feel like for most of that us that's more easily accessible.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, you know, when you're not even facing a life-threatening illness.
Hmm.
I sometimes get overwhelmed going into doing my doctor's. I'm a clinical
Yes.
professional, and yes, I sometimes still have white coat syndrome. Like my blood
Sure.
pressure like shoots up when I
Yes.
hear all these words, all these new things, all these recommendations, and you kind of the gloss over effect.
Right.
The fact that you mentioned, hey, you have trusted people in your life, that you have that go-to person that you know is going to ask questions for you, be
Yeah.
your advocate. Um, that right there to me is such a priority because
Yeah.
you may not find that clinician out there, right?
Hmm.
But just like I previously had a chiropractor on the show, and she was like, "You are your first doctor." And I was thinking about, you know what? You are, and your family, your mom is your
Hmm.
first doctor, your dad is your first nurse. Like, those are the people that are in your life that have been responsible for caring for you and caretaking for you, and that friend who took care of you. So I love that you mentioned that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had another person on the show too who said the exact same advice. So I feel like you guys, if you're out there and you're taking notes and you need bring somebody with you,
Yes.
like he literally said that exact same thing because it can be overwhelming, you
It
know?
can.
I'm
Absolutely.
wondering for you, what as you are tell us exactly how long was for your particular case, how long was your treatment, and what were some of like kind of like the highs and the lows, if you had to
Hmm.
go back and say, you know what, this was really hard, or this I was really happy when I turned this corner. Do
Yeah.
you have any of those?
So for my particular type of cancer, that like I mentioned, it's a standard treatment protocol. At least it was at the time. I do think there's been some evolution since I was treated. But in
Mhm.
2018, you immediately, because HER2 positive is a more aggressive cancer, it multiplies
Okay.
very quickly. My husband asked the question like, how did she have a physical 2 months ago and was
Mhm.
fine, and suddenly this is here? It just multiplies that quickly.
Yeah.
So for my treatment, I immediately started chemo because it's an aggressive cancer. You need what we call a strong chemotherapy, which essentially means you're going to lose your hair with the strong
Mhm.
chemos. So
Mhm.
I took carboplatin, Taxotere, and then I had two immunotherapies, which are lower dose chemotherapies. That was
Okay.
Herceptin and Perjeta. For the two stronger ones, I took those every 3 weeks for 6 rounds. So I
Okay.
started in April of 2018 and I finished at the end of July. For the immunotherapies, I still started those at the beginning of April, and then I did those for a whole year for every 3 weeks.
Wow.
For once I was done with the strong chemo, we waited about 4 weeks, basically for my strength to build back up. I'll
Yeah.
talk about that with some of my
Mhm.
lows. Uh, but a month after finishing chemo, I had a bilateral double mastectomy. And then, and I had for those, I had expanders put in because I was starting the reconstruction process within
Mhm.
that surgery. And then I started radiation. It's probably like mid to late October. And then I finished just before Thanksgiving for radiation. So I did 27 rounds of radiation. And then so
Wow.
I finished that immunotherapy in March of 2019, and then I had my reconstruction surgery, my final reconstruction surgery, or my exchange from the expanders to implants in December of 2019. So all in all, just over a year and a half. The tough
Mhm.
stuff wrapped up in 2018, like with that radiation finishing up. In terms of some of let's start with some highs. Like
Yeah.
I think that you look at cancer treatment, and I had multiple people say, if I was in your shoes, I'd just like curl up in a ball in my closet and cry. And hey,
Mm.
for some people, if that helps you get it out, get it out. There was
Oh,
lots of tears. There was lots of
yeah.
tears. Um, but for my treatment, I think one of my highs, I remember when I was halfway done with chemo, that felt like I had accomplished something. Like I
Yeah.
have gotten
Yeah.
3 under my belt. Because I remember after my first one, my boss at the time reached out and was like, "You did it, only 5 more to go." And I felt so terrible after that first chemo. I was like, I can't do this for 5
Yeah.
more. But by the
Yeah.
time I got my 3rd one under my belt, I was like, you know what? No, I can do this.
I
I can
can do
finish this
this.
out. So that was a high. Also
Yeah.
during chemo, I'm a person of faith. And so during chemo, I believe it was my 2nd or 3rd one. I should know this at this point. It had to have been my 3rd chemo. I walk in, and as so many people would guess, you look in a chemo room, and there's not a lot of early 30-year-olds that are sitting around
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
chairs. It's typically
Mhm.
older people, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I made some really good friends while I was there. But I walk in on this particular day, and there's a girl who looks about my age. And I was like, oh my
Mm.
gosh. And there was a chair open beside her because you get to pick your chair that you sit in. It looked like she had a spouse with her as well. And so I sit down and wasn't trying to be too like, oh my
Right.
gosh, it's someone my age. And so we sit down and we start chatting, and she'd actually just had a baby, her 4th child. She had been
Wow.
diagnosed during her pregnancy, and they had induced her early in order for her to be able to
Mhm.
start chemo. We had the same treatment plan, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I
Wow.
can't believe that I've met someone.
Yes.
And so your chemo day stays the same throughout treatment. And so she
Mm.
and I would have chemo together every 3 weeks. Even my immunotherapy, when I started that, we were just together every 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
such a gift. Well,
Yeah.
probably about a month and a half into our treatment together, I had been keeping an active log, and I had made a post about a grandmother of mine, the one that had also had breast cancer
Mhm.
in her 80s. I just talked. I was talking about some lessons I learned or something like that from her. And this friend, Claren from chemo, reached out and she's like, your grandmother sang for my parents' wedding. And so, wouldn't you know that this random person I sat beside during chemotherapy is from the same hometown as my parents, grew
Wow.
up in the same church as my parents, and my grandmother was active in her parents' and grandparents' life. And
Life.
so, just
Wow.
like, right? One of
Yes.
those things. And I consider her one of my absolute best friends to this day now. But it was just, it floored us. And come to find
Yeah.
out, our oncologist, we shared the same oncologist because of HIPAA, she couldn't tell us about each other, but she
Right.
could coordinate us meeting in the treatment room. So, that's probably like one of the biggest highs from
Yes.
my whole process. And then between the two of us, we actually ended up meeting other women our age who were going through similar situations, and we really grew a network of women in the area.
Yeah.
A couple of the lows, for your medical listeners are gonna know what this is. I don't
Mhm.
recommend Googling it, but I'll tell you it's a really bad gut infection called C. diff,
Mhm.
that I got, right? Yeah. So I had a port, and you can see this scar here. That particular piece of the port scar just wouldn't heal, a couple of
Mhm.
months in. And so I got put on antibiotics, and for whatever reason, especially with the chemo, my body was like, antibiotics, we don't like you. And so
Yeah.
it really depleted my whole system of all the
Yeah.
good gut bacteria I needed in a time when my immune system was already so low. So I got C. diff in July of 2018, and we thought we had gotten it to a point where it was going to be fixed. I mean, I was on multiple rounds of antibiotics to treat the C. diff, and I like at no point did I think I was going to die until that gut infection. I mean, that was like a terrible
Wow.
situation.
Yeah.
So much so, gosh, if you're eating, just like pause the podcast. But so much so, my oncologist said we might need to start looking at fecal transplants. Like that, like
Yeah.
that's where we were
That's
going, which
that's where you are. Yep.
praise the good Lord, that is no longer where they go for this anymore. There's better options that have evolved now.
Yeah.
But that's where we were at the time. And so I had to end up going to see a gastroenterologist. He got me back on track. But during my surgery, we didn't think about, they give you antibiotics during surgery to protect you from
Yeah.
infection.
You sure do.
But that, like, my system was like, we still don't like
All
antibiotics.
right.
And so
Pr-
the infection came back.
Back.
So there was just a period of time where, and I still think, so I'm 7.5 years out.
Yeah.
My
Your
body is
gut,
still
your
in the
gut.
process of resetting, you know?
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
that's that was probably the lowest of low. I think
Mm.
the second thing that I think about, in terms of like what was hard, surprising, shocking, is that during my exchange surgery, we had thought it was the day after Christmas, and we were like, "Ah, we are ending the year. Like, I'm getting fresh boobs, and like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be done. Like,
Woo!
sign it off, and I'm done in 2019." But I woke up coughing, almost just like kind of this choking feeling, not thinking too much of it. But the nurse was like, "Hey, you're okay. You're okay. The crash cart was right here. You're fine. You're fine. Just keep coughing." And as I was coming to, I was like, I've had some surgeries before. No one's ever talked to me this way. And come
Right.
to find out, they had likely used my calculations and numbers for fentanyl during surgery from my previous mastectomy.
Mm.
But I had waned off so much medication, my
Yes.
body just couldn't handle that amount of fentanyl. And so I had gone into a respiratory depression coming out of recovery from that surgery. And I just that thankfully Narcan, that
Yes,
saved me.
I
It
can.
brought me back, right? Again, like, I can tell you all the wonderful drugs that we have
Yes.
that I am so thankful for. But yeah, so that was something really scary where it was like,
Yeah.
you think
You
everything's
think that.
okay, and you
Mhm.
can really be caught off guard. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, those were probably
Those
2
are the
things that really stood out in terms
oh
of,
my
like,
goodness.
whew, that was tough, and I'm glad I got through it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And also, can I just say the incredible detail to which you were able to recall like the names of the drugs.
Mm.
I stumble over pharmacology. Like the
You
fact that
you
it is
know a lot more about it, though, than I do.
I'm just saying, I'm giving you your props.
Thank you. Well, while we're giving drug shout outs, I would also like to shout out Ativan, because that also got me through chemotherapy. Not something you take in the long term, but you know, something that I was never someone like dependent on medication,
Yeah.
prior to cancer. And I remember my oncologist just looked at me and she's like, if you have a symptom, let me help you get through it. There are no
Yeah.
heroes in
Yeah.
cancer. It's
Yeah.
like, whatever you need to get through this treatment, we are going to help you with. And so,
Mm.
I learned quite a bit about different
Yeah.
types of medications during chemo, both over the counter and prescription. And I am grateful
Mhm.
for them all.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
so, one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about this podcast, this work as an integrative practitioner, is because I feel like there's no one size fits all. People need to know all of their options, and what
All of
works
them.
for you may not work for somebody else, with no judgment. And I just wanted a platform because I saw time and time again that as an integrative practitioner, I would get clients who were so anti drugs, anti sort of Western modern medicine. And then I would get some people that were just like, all I want is the drugs
Yeah.
and don't eat. I mean, I remember, um, and these are some pretty serious illnesses that I was having to, and I'm just like, wait, there's miracles happening inside pharma, big pharma. Like,
Yes.
pharma is not just all horrible.
Right. That's
Like,
no, that's exactly right. And I think what you just said, the key is no judgment. No
yeah.
judgment. I there are thankfully, I feel like I ended up building a very supportive medical team that was
Mhm.
always pointing me in the right direction and always very respectful of my personal decisions. And even sometimes when I had to think about something,
Yeah.
very respectful of it. And what I did was I took the perspective, they're telling me this protocol will work. I'm just
Mhm.
going to do it. And then I'm going to figure out, like, how do I live life after this cancer treatment? How do I do that? I'm going to figure that out next, you know? And so
Gotcha.
I had the people around me. My chiropractor was very much kind of a functional health mentor for
Yes.
me at the time. And that's what she said. She's like, you do what's best for you.
Yeah.
If that is what's going to bring you peace, it's like the answer. And I think that's
Yeah.
the
That's a
advice I've
good
given
point.
other
Yep.
women. What brings you peace?
Yes.
If you feel like, hey, the answer for me is this path forward brings me the most peace, then you do that, because what brings me peace and what brings you peace might be two very different paths, and nothing is wrong with either of them.
Yes. I love that. That is such a is resonating with me when you said
Mm,
about the peace, because I feel like oftentimes it's hard to access that peace
it
during such
is.
a frightening time. And so I wonder for you, you mentioned being a woman of faith, and this is meds and magic, so nothing is off limits. We are talking
Yeah.
about the whole person, mind, body, soul, spirit, whatever. For you, what first of all, you mentioned some of your intuitive hunches,
Mm.
and like when something just didn't look right, like you followed that gut. I'm wondering, how prominent do you feel like that hunches, that like, did you foster that? Were you aware that, like, I really want to be guided by like a higher power, a higher self, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever you want to be guided during your process?
So, here's what's interesting, and I actually haven't really thought about this in a little while. It used to be kind of the main feature of my story. So, probably a few weeks before I was diagnosed, actually, it had to have been less than that. I was reading a devotional. So, shout out to Priscilla Schreier and her Awake devotional. I hadn't been involved in like a Bible study in a while, and I was like, I need to get back in tune with God. Like it just wasn't
Yes.
like we were walking together. And so Priscilla's one of my favorite Bible teachers. I hadn't done this devotional, and I was on day 10. I specifically remember it, the day I was diagnosed. But what she had been talking about up until that point each day, she was really focused on different people of the Old Testament and how
Mm,
God had called them to do something hard. And quite often they were like, hey, God, you're crazy. Like, why me? Why? Like, people,
right.
Gideon was particular the person who I was reading about. And Gideon was like the weakest of his tribe. And everybody was like,
Mhm,
God, you doing okay? Like, why are you calling him? And that's how I felt, because
mhm.
I think it was in the moment of like, for me, God was already preparing my mind that
Okay.
I didn't want to do it. I was going to
Okay.
ask some questions. Ask why. For anyone who's like, I didn't ask God why, I just did it. No, I asked God why. I doubted. I said, I think you've called the wrong
Yeah.
person. This is too hard. This is too much. Um, but I think that to your point of that Sunday, I mean, I wasn't reading the Bible when I found it. I was taking a shower and I happened to look in the
Yeah.
mirror and see something. Um, I took a picture that night rocking my kids to bed because there was something there where I was like,
Mhm.
Something's not right. I
Yeah,
know something's not right."
yeah.
So
Hmm.
whether that was like a divine,
Yeah,
just kind of the spirit saying like, "Hey, here we go. We're going to start
here we
doing
go.
this together."
Here we go.
Probably so, looking back.
Yeah,
I think I have actually become more accepting and leaning into more of the what I think a lot of people would call like mystic Christianity,
mhm,
kind of following that spiritual side of things, because I
yeah,
do believe there is so much that the Holy Spirit, that God is kind of is trying to guide us towards, trying to help us
yeah.
see, and we're just not doing that. And so I do believe that my faith became stronger through this process
Mhm.
because then I continued to lean into the devotional work. I mean,
Yeah,
I saw people in the treatment room. Their hope was entirely based on what their oncologist was going to tell them. And what an
yeah,
unfair position to put a doctor
yeah.
in or any medical professional.
Any
If
person,
my
yes,
hope is in you, Samantha, I love you so
yes.
much, but that's a lot of pressure for you, right? That
Mhm,
is so much
mhm.
unfair pressure, and we're both going to be disappointed
Yes,
in whatever the outcome is. And
yes.
so, I think I really truly learned during this process, like my hope has to be in something bigger, greater, higher than I
Mm,
am,
yeah.
and that's really the only way that you can live life.
So, question for you, because I'm a big proponent of sort of like a practical lived out spirituality, right?
Yes.
And I think I talked to you about just my background being a preacher's kid and
Yeah.
just really coming from a background where there was a lot of dogma, and how now I'm like, okay, what does this look like? How do I walk this out? And so I'm wondering for you, if you look at your life pre-C and post-C,
Hmm.
taking into account like your lifestyle, your mindsets, your relationship with spirit, what would you say are some of the biggest shifts post-C? Like, where were you before, and then
Mm.
where are you now?
Yeah, so I grew up in a denomination that was very much like by the rules, right? I
Yeah.
learned a lot about what God liked and didn't liked, what God hated, and
Hmm.
how it, for me also being the oldest daughter, I
Yeah.
give me a set of rules and let me
Yes.
please you.
Was there
That
some perfectionism there? Can I
oh,
make that
oh,
assumption?
absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I've been in therapy for 5 years now, and we're still working on these things. So, yes, absolutely. I think that, for me, faith was very much I probably wouldn't even say faith. I think I
Right.
was very religious in
Religion,
terms
maybe.
yeah,
Hmm.
religion. It was a religion for me. And I think what I discovered, we changed denominations and churches about 4 months, even less than that actually, before I got diagnosed. And I remember when I got diagnosed, I felt very awkward telling our new church because here we were getting ready to join the church. I was getting diagnosed. It's like, ugh, now we're gonna be like a burden on these great new people that we've just found. Like I felt guilty. Isn't that weird? Like thinking back on it. And I
That
think what
is
it actually
wild.
was like, nope,
Yeah.
like God saying, I'm actually giving you the right people, the right community
Yes.
to help you through this. And in changing the for me, I think the denominational shift has been super helpful. But what it has in both the my cancer and just me allowing myself to kind of open my mind to
Mm.
God is love. Like that's what it
Mhm.
boils down to.
Okay.
And so now for me, it's how do I, if there's no one else that can show you God's love, I hope it's me.
Mm.
I hope it's me in
Yes.
every interaction that we have. And
Yes.
that's what it is. That's what it
Yes.
is. And so I do think I even saw that I think cancer probably that was a steep learning curve in terms
Mhm.
of I got a lot of people to love on me. I felt
Yes.
it from
Yeah.
just a broad community of people, but religious,
Yes.
non-religious, faith-based, non-faith-based, everybody.
Right.
I felt
Right.
so much love. And so I think that as I was going through treatment, what I was receiving both from others in the community, but also just in this, I've never had more devotional time with God than I did during cancer treatment.
Mm,
Um, and I look back at like my journals and both like asking God really hard questions and then just capturing what I personally was receiving,
yeah.
both from others and from kind of like the spiritual aspect of just the quiet time with God. It can't be compared to anything else in my life. So I do think to answer your question, um, for me, treatment was the game changer for how I view people, how I practice my faith, and
Wow.
also I think how I bring my kids up in faith as well.
Yeah. I what really was a highlight for me when you were talking was the idea of really connecting to love in a way that you had never connected to love
Yes,
before.
yes,
Whether it be this outpouring of love towards you, right?
hmm
That you had to get comfortable with, right? This is a message that I've heard before with other survivors that I've talked
yeah,
to. Like this idea of, and you said that being the oldest and taking care of other people, literally being vulnerable enough to allow yourself to be cared for
yeah,
and, look at, wait, what? There's some guilt there of needing to be needy.
yes,
Needing to, and looking at that with compassion and saying, I know I feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask anyway. I know this is not, this doesn't feel normal or it feels awkward, but I'm going to be vulnerable anyway,
yes.
because I need it. And so it sounds like your connection to love for yourself, loving
hmm
yourself and being vulnerable. And then out of that, you're able to show up and love people in a way that you probably would never have before if you didn't go through this.
And I never thought of it that way. So I appreciate that you made that connection.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that in the work that I do every day, there's a lot of interaction with younger people.
Mhm.
And one of the thoughts that has come to my mind is like we ask these younger people to serve customers and guests in a way that shows love and care.
Yeah.
But when we're working with younger people that are coming from homes where perhaps they haven't been shown love and care, that's a
Yes.
big ask.
It's
Like
a
they
big
may
ask.
not know how to do it.
What
And
does that
so
even look like, feel like?
right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, and
Yeah.
maybe that's such a good challenge. I mean, a continued challenge for myself, but also for the audience. Is like think
Yeah.
about the time when someone, and maybe it's just one person, showed you love in a way that overwhelmed you or inspired
Mhm.
you, and then how can you take that out there? Because you just there's so many people in our community and in our world that have truly never felt love from someone else.
Mhm.
And I think it's certainly more important now more than ever that we
More
do
than
that.
ever.
Yeah.
I want to know what your self-care journey looks like now on the
Mm.
maintenance phase. I've talked to a lot of people who, they still have that like, ugh, is it gonna come back? Like, what do I need to do to make sure it doesn't come back? Or what do I need to do to just take care of myself? Where's your head at with that? And then what are you doing practically to take care of yourself?
So for any of you that have a survivor in your life that when they finish treatment, the thing
Mm-hmm.
not to say is, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're back. Like back to normal. You don't have to worry about it anymore." No. I will tell you, you worry about cancer more after treatment because during
Mm.
treatment, I was at the hospital almost every week. It felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, certainly radiation. I was there every
Yep.
day. I got to see
Yeah.
my doctor every day. They got to give me a pat on the back, tell me I was doing a good job. And then suddenly you're not there every day. And that's when the questions start creeping
Yeah.
in. It's like, okay, well, what if it does come back?
Yeah.
And every ache and pain might be cancer again. And I think Samantha, as you and I talked about previously, like I've diagnosed myself with multiple different types of cancers, post-cancer treatment, because the reality is cancer does come back. Like
Right.
that is a reality. But for a majority of us, it's not necessarily the case. And
Yeah.
so, what I found for me was one, like verbalizing that I like mentally, I was really not okay post treatment.
Okay.
That's when I found my therapist was beginning of
Yeah.
2020. And I take that back. A few
Yeah.
things happened in 2020 outside of COVID. Okay.
I was
COVID
just
was a
curious, can we just pause the fact
outside of
that,
COVID
like, you were going through this and the whole world was bananas?
was shutting down. So, and here's the funny thing that maybe many of you remember, we were all stuck in our houses. And not only was I stuck in my house, I was stuck in my head too,
Yeah.
because it was, I didn't even get to have a follow-up from my surgery in at the end of December 2019 because my follow-up was scheduled for March of 2020. And it was like, hey, unless you're experiencing any issues, we're not going to see
Yes.
you.
Yep.
Um, so being stuck in my head, I also realized during 2020 that my recommendation for post-cancer treatment from my medical team was, you can drink alcohol in moderation. I had been
Mhm.
I'd say a pretty heavy drinker pre-cancer.
Mhm.
Cancer, I lost my taste for a lot of alcohol, but man, give me some red wine. I felt good about it. But in June of 2020, after drinking so many bottles of red wine and realizing my body really could not accept alcohol anymore,
Mm.
I was like, all right, I'm going to stop drinking altogether. And I did. I quit cold turkey.
Okay.
But what I came to find out was that alcohol was helping me suppress a lot of these
Mhm.
feelings that I had. And come August,
Yeah.
I felt like I was mentally just going crazy. I called them anxiety spirals.
Yeah.
And I remember one day my husband, I was trying to like verbally process these things with him, and he so kindly said, "Hey, I think you should probably try looking for a counselor because I can't help you process this."
I love
And
it.
he
Pull
was
in
right.
community, pull in the
He was
professionals.
right. Yes. And I found the most amazing therapist, and she and I still work together today, but it
Yeah.
was that was clutch for me in terms
Yeah.
of post-treatment care.
Yeah.
Because I remember earlier that year I had found a nutritionist because that was the answer, right? Give me a good
Right.
nutritionist. And I
Right.
remember I started that relationship with my nutritionist saying, I just need you to like whatever it is to make sure cancer doesn't come back.
Yeah.
That's where we're going.
Give
And
me that
again,
please.
my poor nutritionist, I am putting all this pressure on you to make sure my cancer doesn't come back. You tell me what to do. Um,
Mhm.
and that was not
Yes.
fair. However, I still work with a nutritionist. I'm still in therapy on a regular basis.
Right.
In terms of other things that I've done, I have found my key that if there's anything anybody here does differently than what you were doing maybe yesterday, I track my sleep. I track my sleep.
That's a
Pre
good one.
pre-cancer, I would have told you, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And come to
Yeah.
find out, you truly will sleep when you're dead. And
Yeah.
if you're not sleeping, you will get there faster
You will get
than
there
if you
super fast.
are
Yeah.
getting a good night's sleep. Um,
Yes.
and it had been that way for years and years and years. I mean, like I can think back to third grade when my mom finally went to bed at 9 o'clock one night because I was still procrastinating doing a project. She's like, "You're just gonna have to do this on your own." And I stayed up late and I got it done. And that started a pattern for me for years and years and years into
Yeah.
college where sleep was not the priority.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all like personality driven. There's so many more elements
Right.
to that,
There's
but
so
sleep
many
was
layers
never a
to that.
priority. Right.
You are
And so
chronically
now
sleep deprived.
chronically. If there's something past chronically, it was that.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
now what I do for 3 years now, I've worn a Whoop, and
Okay.
that just helps me hold myself accountable. Where
Yeah.
how am I doing? How am I checking in? Knowing when to slow down, knowing
Yes.
when I can handle like maybe some higher energy times. But I've found more ways and more people to hold me accountable in a healthy way. than what I was doing post cancer. So during cancer, I realized the importance of a medical team. Post
Mhm,
cancer, I've worked to find the right medical team and elements that will still hold me accountable in my health. But the
mhm.
idea is like we're proactive in health versus having to be reactive.
Yes, I love that. I love the shift that you made,
Yeah,
because before you weren't as proactive, right?
not
How
at all.
many of us in our 20s and early 30s and early parenthood are? But I feel like just listening to your story and listening to, I mean, it's clear to me, listening to your story and looking at the timeline, that like when you prioritize sort of this prevention, listening to your body, you know, alcohol may not be what's best for me. I'm going to
Yeah.
shift. I'm going to prioritize sleep, because let me tell you, that is where most of your repair,
Mhm.
your recovery, your healing takes place, when you are in that deep rest, restorative state. And most of us aren't going through all those phases like we need
Mhm.
to, all those sleep cycles. And
Mhm.
so think about how on year on top of year of chronically like not getting into that deep, that's impacting your ability to fight off infection, fight off all the cancers that show up in our body all the time.
All the time.
Spoiler
That was
alert.
I learned that. I learned that during treatment. They said, "Hey, your body is, we get multiple mutations all the
Yep,
time, all the
all the time.
time. But it is sleep that is able to help your body heal and
Feel it.
restore."
Yes.
Mhm.
So I'm so glad that you're taking that seriously. I've tracked my sleep for about a year and a half, and it was
Mhm.
like mind blowing. I
Yeah.
found out so much data about, that's actually what helped me cut back on alcohol past a certain time. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not worth it. If I drink a glass of red wine at 9 o'clock at night, my sleep is trash.
Yes.
No, thank you. That
Yes.
sleep to me is like currency. It's gold.
Yes. Well,
I
and
don't play.
especially when there's just so much in life that you truly want to be spending time on. Well, weighing the options, or maybe like for me and my husband too, we used to be the ones that like would watch TV until we fell asleep on the couch, 1 a.m. One
Yes,
of us would like wake the other one up to get to bed. And it's like, oh no, actually that's not good sleep when we do it that
yeah,
way. And so just choosing to turn off the TV at an
yeah,
earlier time.
yes,
It's some of those smaller decisions that not everybody is making, and that's
yes.
fine. But you
Hey,
have to figure out what's best for you.
what's best for you.
Mhm.
And also, because I feel like a lot of time we're making those choices based on the fact that we're trying to avoid something. We have
Yeah.
these thought and mental processes that are being like tampered down by the addictive behavior, these,
Yes.
sort of behaviors that are not good for us, but they may spike our serotonin up temporarily,
Yeah.
so that we are distracted from like this deep healing work that needs to happen. So I'm so glad that you mentioned reaching out to a therapist,
Yes.
doing that work, because a lot of times when you do try to make those lifestyle changes without having the support,
Mhm.
it doesn't last, it doesn't stick, because
Right.
these hard feelings come up and you're like, I don't want to feel this. Let me go back to the
Yes.
bottle, right? So
Yes.
just being strategic about, hey, these feelings, it's going to be normal to sometimes when you make that shift, hard feelings are going to come up, hard emotions, but just have your people in
Right.
place, right?
Have your people. Have your people. And
Have
even
your
if it's someone, even if for whatever reason counseling is not accessible for you and it's not for a variety of people, like who do you have that you
yeah,
can just call? And maybe it's a pastor at your church, maybe it's a leader in the community that you connect with really well, or even someone at work that's not on your team that you feel comfortable sharing something with. Just identify that person and be like, "Hey, do you mind if I just like reach out to you on a tough day and just say like I'm having a
yeah,
hard day?" I think all of us probably have that person in our life. It can be scary to be vulnerable in that way. So yeah, whoever it is, whatever it is, certainly ideally a therapist who's trained to have those conversations, or someone who pastoral counseling, the ideal, but try to find that person, because even if you
yes.
can't access it through healthcare, then I bet there is someone that's willing to at least just hold your hand and sit with you.
Yeah. You know, I've loved talking to you. I feel like you're just such the themes that keep coming up over and over again as I'm having these conversations with people with any chronic disease, but
Mhm.
particularly with cancer, these conversations that I've been having, two themes. Number one, your healing journey, your sickness, your whatever your disease can be an opportunity to see
Mhm.
like the larger context of your life and be a catalyst. Be a
Yes.
catalyst for making like major lifestyle shifts for like a better you, a more
Mhm.
fulfilled you, a more aligned you to who you are. And I feel
Yeah.
like your story highlights that really well.
Mm.
And I'm just so
Thank you.
grateful that you because you have to be open to it, to let it change you,
Yeah.
right? To surrender to like, okay, this way that I used to think may not serve me anymore and think in this way. And so being open to that. And it takes courage, girl. It takes
It takes courage. I think it's one of the things that I recommend for anybody in any life stage that you're in, journaling. Even if it's just you're
oh
writing a
yeah.
couple of sentences each day, maybe you write about something really great that happened and you write about a challenge that you're facing.
Yeah.
Uh, I love going back and looking to see like, ooh,
Yeah.
this day last year, this was really
This
hard,
was
but you know what?
going
Today,
on.
this year,
Yeah.
today's really good.
Yeah.
And so I think it can be great just to celebrate yourself, but to have
Absolutely.
that reflection is so important because all of us
Yeah.
go through hard stuff. Your hard
Mm-hmm.
looks different than my hard, looks different than her hard,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever that is. All of us are going through hard stuff. I think that's the one thing, especially as women, is that we compare. Like, I'll have women be like, "Ah, well, I was diagnosed with cancer, but I didn't have to do chemo, so it wasn't as hard as
Right.
yours." That is not true. The moment you get a diagnosis of any sort, the moment that you lose someone you love,
Yeah.
whatever it is, we all face hard. Our
Yeah.
each of our hard just looks different, and we can still value that it's hard. We live under
Yes.
the banner of life is just hard, and we just have
Yes.
to support each other through it. Stop comparing each other in our hard. Just
Mhm.
support like, "Hey, I recognize today's a tough day for you. You're in a tough season right now, but I'm gonna support you."
Yeah.
You got your community that has you. So I think it's so important that we recognize where we are in the days that we are and remember that there's gonna be better days ahead for all of us.
And you literally touched on my second point, which is the second theme that I've heard over and over again is literally, and I knew this intuitively, I knew this from my lived experiences, I
Mhm.
knew this from my clinical work. Healing does not happen in a bubble. Healing happens in community. And
Yes.
so literally opening yourself up to that help like we're
Yep.
talking about, finding your people, leaning on each other, seeing the wonderful people that are showing up and appreciating them, right? Even
Mhm.
your team. I love that you gave a shout out to your medical team, right? Like every person that literally was along on your journey, was part of your community, even your virtual
Yes.
community, because you went hard with like being like a spokesperson, I would say almost
I
like.
did. Yes. Yes.
So you had like even an online community, a reach
Mhm.
that was far out, and that that's not everybody's path, but finding whatever is your community that you feel safe, comfortable, and have peace about,
Yes.
doing that is critical piece of your healing.
Yeah, and I know, so many women, especially in, cancer treatment, after they get a diagnosis, they don't wanna tell people, whether it's
Yeah.
shame, whether it's scary, there's a lot of women, I typically, like a child, if someone will reach out to me, so it's someone usually my age and their mom's older, it's like, "Well, my mom just doesn't want anybody to know that she's going through
Yeah.
this." It's like, oh, but there's so many people that would love to support her, and there's so many resources for
Yeah.
support out there. But you gotta be brave and
Yes.
vulnerable, and know
Yes.
that too. I think that's where this comes back to having those strong people around you who will be a wall when you need a wall
Yeah.
around you,
Mhm.
and who will speak into you with love and encouragement. There are always going to be the people that are like, do it this way, don't do it this way, or cancer's
Right.
this and cancer's that. And There's always gonna be those people,
Yeah,
always.
yeah,
But when you have
always.
that strong wall of people around you who aren't gonna listen to those voices and that are gonna help you, just hear truth, it's gonna make all the difference, and it will help you, to get through tough stuff, whatever getting through it may look like.
Yeah. What's final thought? What's one thing you would tell yourself if your version now? What would you
Yeah.
tell her back then when she was first diagnosed, knowing what you know now?
Um, I've thought about this question before, and I still don't know that I have a great answer.
Yeah.
Um, I would tell her that, 1, you're gonna get through this. You're gonna get through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
and
that's so powerful.
it's you will be surprised with the joy you find along the way.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, there
yes.
were too many beautiful things that happened
Yeah.
that would have never happened in my life, and I don't think my life would look the way it does today,
Yeah.
had I not been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah. I love
So,
that. I love that because honestly, like what you said earlier, we all have these points in our life where we're faced
uh
with these like hard things and you don't necessarily feel like I'm going to get through this or there is joy to be had in the middle of it or there is light to be experienced in the middle of it.
yeah.
But just hearing your story, because a lot of us can understand, like, how dark cancer could feel, like, you can
Sure.
empathize because 'cause it's been drilled in us, right? Like, ugh. But for you to even say that, to me, it's just so powerful at there's opportunity for us all to look at these hard things and look for the joy,
Yeah.
expect the sun to shine on some days, right?
I love
Don't
that.
expect it
Expect
all
it.
to be yeah, expect it. Expect
Mhm.
good things to happen to you even when you're going through a crappy journey. Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Oh,
Yes!
this has filled me today, Samantha.
I'm so
I'm great
glad. I'm
grateful
so
for this
glad for us.
podcast and the work you're doing.
Thank you. I'm so happy that to have you. I'm so excited to keep the conversation going,
Yes.
to keep putting out this light, where there's so much other noise on the
Yeah.
airwaves.
So much.
So thank you, Jen. Thank you, listeners. Please remember to like this podcast. You need to share it because it needs to gain traction and get out there to pierce through all the stuff. And subscribe and follow it on whatever podcast platform that you like to listen to. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to you guys tuning in for the next episode. Thank you.